Welcome in, everybody. This is meteorologist Matt Wintz. Appreciate you joining us here on Severe Weather Now, here as of Sunday evening. Again, the severe weather outbreak that we've been tracking all afternoon continues on into this evening with a few storms that are producing tornadoes in one potentially major tornado right now heading through areas of southern Mississippi. So you can see the big picture right now on the radar. We continue to have as we mentioned in our last update, just flooding rains. I thought that would be one of the biggest threats for areas in central and northern areas of Alabama and Georgia, and that continues to be the case as these storms continue to just put down lots and lots of rainfall over the same areas over and over again. Now, our severe threat has shifted further south. We mentioned in our last update, if you joined us, the amount of available energy in the atmosphere was confined to south of that warm front, and that warm front's moved very little over the last few hours, and that's due in part to a lot of these showers and thunderstorms putting out big pools of cool air. So that cool air really tries to counteract this warm front as it's tried to make its way north, and it hasn't done much in terms of movement here over the last couple hours. So that has kept a severe threat out of the Atlanta, the Birmingham area. We weren't expecting much of a severe threat there, but it was going to be close. But this has kept it further south. But boy, this atmosphere is just charged and ready to go across southern Mississippi, southern areas of Alabama, and eventually into Georgia and northern parts of the panhandle of Florida there. So let's get to our big storm that we have right now. This has a confirmed tornado with it, and it has had just a history here over the last 15, 20 minutes or so of producing not just a tornado that's on the ground, but lots of debris has been lofted way up in the atmosphere, some 20 to 25,000 feet in the atmosphere. We've been seeing debris from this storm, and this is in Mississippi heading towards the Purvis area. That's along areas of 59 there as you head north and south out of Alabama up towards Hattiesburg. This may affect the southern part of the metro area there. So if you are anywhere in this vicinity here near 59 from Hattiesburg down to Purvis, you need to be in a safe place because this is a very dangerous storm. What I'm going to do here is switch the radar around to more of a high-res look instead of the national look. That way we can get a real good scan here on the latest with the storm. You can see that tornado warning polygon there as the storm continues off to the east. These storms are moving very, very quickly, so keep that in mind. They're moving anywhere from 60 to 70 miles per hour, much like they were last week. Just very, very fast movement on these. There's lots of moisture available in the atmosphere, so the rain is just coming down all around these storms. They're not that pretty look that you see out in Kansas, Oklahoma. This is likely just a rain-soaked tornado, and it is a big one that's on the ground. So here we go. This is the radar now. You can see some of those stronger reflectivities. We have a little bit of a hook shape to it. Let's get in and look at the wind. That way we can tell where that is, and you can see a real well-defined area of circulation here. This is a very tight signature here on the radar. Again, heading towards the Purvis area. It's right in this area where you see those reds meeting some of the pinks and some of the brighter greens that we have that tornado likely still on the ground. Let's go back through time and kind of look at what this looks like over the last couple minutes or so, and you can see that signature not really letting up at all. This is still a very, very dangerous situation heading into areas of Mississippi near the Purvis community. And you can see as it heads back, maybe some rotations starting to develop near Columbia as well with that storm. A couple storms in back and behind here, but this is by and large the biggest storm that we have and the most dangerous storm right now in the whole entire United States as this continues off to the east. So that's in Mississippi. We've got another tornado-warned storm in Alabama, and that has been ongoing here over the last, half an hour or so. This is near the Greenville community, and that is now a severe thunderstorm warning. That is good news. They have dropped the tornado warning with that storm as that continues off to the east. So this is our tornado-warned storm right now. Remember last week, I know if you're down south, you certainly do, had two major tornadoes, EF4s in areas of Mississippi, and those were in areas just off to the north. So we're talking right in this vicinity, we had the EF4 tornadoes, two of them. So we're not far off from areas that just got hammered last week with some of these devastating storms. And now we're talking a track for this one. It's going to take it a little bit further south. Hattiesburg, you're going to be in the path of this. I think it'll pass just south of downtown proper, but boy, you go just south of town, we're going to be dealing with a very strong thunderstorm as this continues to move through. So tornado warning right now. This is for a tornado that's on the ground in areas of southern Mississippi. This whole atmosphere here has been pretty much untapped all day. We've had lots of rainfall around, but that doesn't seem to be stopping this as we've got just a fresh inflow from areas down to the south here. You can see we have no rain whatsoever. Biloxi over towards Mobile, and that's just helping to kind of feel these storms on the southern periphery of this much, much larger section of storms off to the north. So some of these storms on the southern flank really have an opportunity to get going here. And this one certainly has. Really has been very impressive over the last hour as it's heading out of out of areas of Louisiana into Mississippi. And now we have that big tornado on the ground heading towards the town of Purvis. So we'll kind of get back in here. If you have friends or family down in this area, for some reason, you may want to alert them if they have no idea the storm's coming. I would hope they do. I know a lot of folks in Mississippi, especially after last week, are very in tune with the weather. But this is a very dangerous storm on the ground that has a tornado with it. And we can tell that because we've had a lot of confirmation on that. We also have debris that has been lofted in the atmosphere. So what you're looking at here, this is a correlation coefficient. For all the weather geeks out there, you know what this means, hopefully, but you can see what this does. It's basically an algorithm that's thrown into the software of a radar there that can tell you the things that are alike. All the raindrops, pretty much the same size, they look alike, so that's the smooth red color you see, but when you get these differing colors in here, that means you have objects that are different sizes. And what we can see right here, especially that little ball of blue that you see heading off towards the east, is debris that is lofted in the atmosphere. All sorts of different things, whether it be trees or even pieces of structure, and that is what we're being picked up by the radar here heading towards the Purvis area, and that is from the tornado that is either out ahead of it or right over it. The radar picking up, obviously, those objects that are a different size. So a very dangerous storm as this continues to head off towards the east, towards the town of Purvis there. And you can see they have now extended that tornado warning a little bit further now. This includes areas of Interstate 59 as you're heading into Alabama, out of Mississippi towards Hattiesburg there, and this will eventually head off towards the east a little bit further as well, crossing eventually the state line here as we go over the next half hour or so. So this is our danger zone right now, is really the southern flank. I'm going to switch radars again. Go back to more of a big picture for you here for those that aren't in that area. And you can see we've got another severe thunderstorm warning storm south of Montgomery. Really big flood threat. Again, we had mentioned this in our last update, but I thought we'd have really a lot of flooding problems rather than severe thunderstorm problems for this area, and that's exactly what we've had over the last hour, are these thunderstorms that just go over the same area over and over. We don't really have much of a severe threat in the circled area, despite the SBC earlier today thinking you'd have a higher risk here. But it was all dependent on that warm front heading northward, and that warm front has just not made it north, really in part due to all these thunderstorms that continue to try to put cool air down to the south as they've got the cool air being kind of gushed out from these. Those are the outflow boundaries you often see. But there's just a huge area of cool air aloft from all this heavy rain. So that's been pushing south. At the same time, you've got a warm front in here that's trying to make it north. So it's really just been a battle of which one wins. And so far today, with all this rain, it has been the cooler air that's kind of won out as it has just really pushed down to the south. We can pull up here. Let me get my telestrator off the screen there. And let's look at some of the dynamics here that are kind of playing into these storms. The first thing I want to look at, this is going to be your CAPE, which is convective available potential energy, basically how much juju or energy does the atmosphere have. This hasn't made it very far north. You can see some of the brighter colors here in the red and even the pink and the whitish color there. That is a tremendous amount of energy for these thunderstorms to really become quite powerful. Meanwhile, look back in Georgia here. we haven't had much instability at all getting very far north in the areas of southwestern Georgia because that cool air has just really won out. We had a wedge set up earlier with cool air coming down the Appalachians. Atlanta, you were 48 degrees earlier today, and that wedge setup has continued to push the cool air south as well. So the severe threat has not made it that far north. It's hugging the I-10 corridor and probably about 30 miles or so north of that. So here's your severe threat the rest of the evening is down towards the south. This would be kind of a secondary area here in Georgia, just because some of these storms are packing some hail, lots of lightning, and some high winds with them. Not to say you can't get a severe thunderstorm outside of this main area, like right in here. We may be able to pop a couple of severe storms here as we go throughout the evening, but overall it's going to be down to the south in this area where you see this higher amount of CAPE or energy with that. And wouldn't you know it, that's exactly where our Mississippi storm is right in the middle of where we have some of the highest energy. And you look at this, there's nothing that's going to be slowing this storm down. The rotation could break up a little bit, perhaps it recycles, but if you have interests in areas of southwestern Alabama from Jackson back towards Hattiesburg, Mississippi, this whole area needs to be watching this storm as there's really nothing that's going to get in the way of this. There's no moisture out ahead of it. There's not showers or thunderstorms out in advance that are going to kind of slow that atmosphere up a little bit. So this is going to be a big deal as we go throughout the rest of the evening, this thunderstorm right here. The storm up towards Troy, you can see it's kind of hugging that warm front line. You need to keep an eye on these sometimes too. And the reason why I say that is with the warm front being somewhere in here, you have a little churning of the wind. So you have your strong southerly flow in the south end of that. It's warm and humid. And then on the northern end of that, sometimes you have wind that's coming from the east. Sometimes it's northeast. You have a wind shift though. And as these storms ride that boundary or that wind shift, they tend to get a little squirrely. You can get some spin ups on that, and you can get some powerful tornadoes on warm fronts as well. So that's something we need to keep an eye on, this storm right here approaching the Troy area. Montgomery, I don't think you have much of a severe threat from here on out. It has been heavy rain for you. Back towards Columbus, we've got thunderstorms with just a lot of lightning with them, perhaps some hail with these, but the biggest threat for you as well is for the flood threat because we've had so much heavy rain with this over the last several hours, and that extends all the way over towards the Macon area, Warner Robins there up towards Dublin. We've had just copious amounts of rain. Savannah, we'll see if that warm front makes it north to you later tonight. But really, the way things have gone in Georgia so far, kind of expecting the severe threat to stay south of you. We'll see what happens. This could still surge north when it heads over to you, but that's not till overnight tonight. Over the next couple hours, though, I would keep my eye on these South Alabama storms near Troy, and then obviously our huge tornado-producing storm here near Hattiesburg getting ready to cross over I-59. So let's go back to this one. This is in southeastern Mississippi. This is just south of the areas that just got hit so hard last week with those devastating tornadoes. We'll go back to our high-res radar again and dive into the storm. We'll also turn our CAPE off that we have on there. But these have been just tremendous storms over the last 45 minutes to an hour heading through Mississippi. It got going kind of weird. We had like an area of very strong winds within it. It didn't have much rotation. And then it just really started to blossom over the last, 45 minutes to an hour as it went through Macomb and then Columbia. And now it's approaching areas of Hattiesburg. You can see the very heavy rain getting into downtown right now, right over 59. In terms of the rotation on this, still showing a really good signature. This is going to cross south of the Hattiesburg area, southern area of the town. You need to be on high alert for this, but this area right here is where that tornado would be and where that tornado has been as it's been tracking in from the west-southwest. But this is a very dangerous storm getting right over 59 now. It'll probably cross over in the next probably 2 or 3 minutes or so. Keep in mind, this is coming with some very, very heavy rain with it. We've got all sorts of rain falling around this, so it is not a pretty storm. You're going to have extremely heavy rain, windy conditions, and then the winds in and around this tornado obviously are going to ramp up in a hurry. But this thing is going to come out of nowhere. It's not going to be something that you can see coming with a real picturesque lightning display, lighting up the tornado. This is an ugly storm. and all these are with all the moisture that we have in place as this heads east. So getting ready to cross over Interstate 59 there. This is southeastern areas of Mississippi. Will likely be on the Alabama side of things here in another 45 minutes or so as this tracks off to the east. And this is going to be a storm that we really need to watch on the go forward, because this storm is heading into air that is just so fresh, and really it's been untapped throughout the daytime. There's been very little rain in this area, just a warm Gulf of Mexico flow coming in there. It's warm, it's humid, the atmosphere just right for this storm. So really are going to need to watch this downstream, and that would include all these areas here as you get over towards just north of Mobile, Alabama, and eventually the 65 corridor. That'd probably be in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half or so. So dangerous storm there as we continue to track that off towards the east. Bigger picture looks like this, though. Let's get out of here. Sorry, trying to drive the ship and talk at the same time. I'm going to get out of our wind display here. We'll go back to reflectivity, and we'll go back to our national view to kind of get a bigger picture of this here in terms of some other areas in the southeast. These flood warnings are going to go not just over the next couple hours. They really go through the early morning hours, and rightfully so, because we have just had so much rainfall on the northern end of these storms. So the southern end of these storms, that's where our tornado threat lies. And then our northern end of the storms, you can see all the heavy rain that we've had. That's where our flood threat lies. It's coming down light enough in areas of northern Alabama and North Georgia. I mean, it's a moderate rain, sometimes heavy, but it's not the 2 to 3 inches an hour that we've been getting down to the south. So this area up here, we may have some flood warnings with this, but at least the ground's able to keep up with this because it's not coming down like it is in some of these red cells down to the south. You can notice where our flood warnings are. Those are mainly where we've had just this tremendous thunderstorm activity over and over again across the same areas. They've been just training through areas of Alabama and Georgia, and we've seen 4, 5, even 6 inches of rain from these, and it's still going. That's the problem, is these continue. I think what's going to happen as we go throughout the evening, though, and into the overnight, and this is some good news for some of these flooding areas right here. I think this is going to become kind of a cluster of storms and head southeast, and then I think this one will kind of take over as well, and I think that will head southeast. And so what that will do, as these two clusters of storms really get organized and together, that will continue the tornado threat for areas where these head into, because it's kind of untapped. But it'll also increase our damaging wind threat with these as they become more linear in nature. But it'll also, the third thing is, it's going to drag some of this moisture on the backside away. It's going to shrink it down in coverage. So that will take the real heavy rain out of the areas that have seen it, and it'll replace it with this light to moderate rain off to the north for a while. So we need to get the thunderstorm structure, these robust storms, out of there. So that's kind of what is going to happen the rest of the evening as it looks right now. All right, so we still have our tornado warning, and that is back in Mississippi. That's Forest County and Lamar County, and that goes for a little bit longer. Now, the latest scan, I'm looking at a radar here on the side, shows a very well-defined area of rotation within this. But the good news is it does look like it's starting to either recycle or break up just a little bit as this crosses over 59 right about now. This is still a very dangerous storm. They've had the tornado warning on it. There's been a tornado confirmed within this. A very, very powerful storm as it's heading east. But you can see now what the local weather service is doing is they have not continued that tornado warning with this. They have now replaced it with a severe thunderstorm warning out ahead of it. Tornado warning still out for the Purvis area. I believe this is areas of Lamar County. And that goes for another, we have 15 minutes or so. But upstream, this is good news, we've replaced it with a severe thunderstorm warning. Now, per what we were talking about earlier, we still need to make sure we are on high alert for the storm. Because this atmosphere is still ready to go, and this is a very dangerous storm. It could be recycling, perhaps. The inflow is restructuring. Whatever it is, it's kind of downgrading itself, but it doesn't mean it can't upgrade itself again. So this is a very dangerous storm that's had a history of producing a tornado heading into areas near Beaumont and Richton, and that will be over the next half hour or so that this continues to track through. Lots of lightning with this. We've had lots of heavy rain. This in itself will produce probably 2 inches of rainfall as it moves off to the east. And the problem is there's more behind that. So you're not done after that initial batch comes through. But that tornado warned part, as of right now, is right in this area. It has already crossed I-57 or 59, and it's heading off towards the east. So that's the dangerous part of the cell. It becomes heavy rain and lightning beyond that. And then we've got another severe warm cell back on the back here towards Angie and Columbia. And this will be an area to watch closely because this too is on the southern flank of all of this thunderstorm activity. This is the most dangerous part of this whole entire system that we have across the southeastern United States, is the southern edge of all these showers and thunderstorms. That's the area we need to watch because you have rich flow coming out of the Gulf, you have decent amount of shear, and basically all the energy available that these storms can tap into. And that's what we've seen with this storm up near Purvis, heading towards just south of Hattiesburg. It's affecting right now, heading towards the Beaumont area. So that's what we're seeing right now with that storm. And that's great news that that is now a severe thunderstorm warning with that cell. These storms are also producing, not in addition to some of the very heavy rainfall, they're also producing some hail. We've had plenty of hail with these. We've also had some damaging winds as well as these have moved through. We've had all sorts of trees down, all sorts of problems as you get off towards the west. We can pull up and actually look at the gate-to-gate shear with this, which is basically how strong is that area rotation. We'll let this load a little bit, but you can see some of the brighter pinks. That's what that indicates, is some of the very strong gate-to-gate shear that we've had back towards the west when it was a tornado. And you can see how it's kind of, this isn't a really good view of that, but you can see how it kind of went away, and it looks like it's just weakening just a little bit here over the last couple scans. All right, thing I want to pull up now is the hail within this, and we'll show kind of what the hail structure has looked like as the storm has tracked east. We'll let it load a little bit, but you can see we've had tremendous amounts of hail, and that would be some of this blue and some of these brighter echoes that you've seen, indicating that we've had large hail, not just up in the clouds, but obviously that's been reaching the ground as well. So very messy storm heading in. It's not just the rain, it's not just the wind, it's not just the hail, but it's that tornado threat we have with this cell as it continues off to the east. So if you're anywhere southeastern Mississippi, if you're southwestern areas of Alabama, this storm, I would imagine, will continue on its same track towards areas Monroeville, Beaumont's in there as well. And this is the dangerous part of the storm. Up here, Meridian, areas that had the tornado last week, we don't have a severe threat right now. This is all much more stable air. We've got the heavier rainfall with it. You've got a lot of lightning with it as well. But overall, the severe threat is actually quite low within that. It's the southern end of this whole entire cluster that needs watched carefully because that's where the atmosphere is ready to go in terms of producing severe thunderstorms and tornadoes as well. So the bigger picture looks like this. If you're in areas of northern Georgia, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, you have a very, very low severe threat here this evening. In fact, I would be surprised if we had any severe weather up in this area because we are just been rained out. This is a cool, stable air mass. You can feel it. Even areas back in Louisiana and western Mississippi, that air mass has changed so much. We've seen just a much cooler, much more stable air mass head in, even a cooling wind as well. It's down here that we have that severe weather threat as we go throughout the overnight on the southern flank of these clusters of showers and thunderstorms. That's where our threat lies as we go throughout the evening. Let's do a couple other things here and look at some of the numbers that we have in terms of, we showed the available CAPE. Let's go back and look at some of the temperatures, just some of the basic things here, so we can tell where that warm front is and tell who's going to get it the rest of the night here. So let me find where we have those. Should be right in here. All right, so we'll turn on temperatures and take a look at some of the temps around the area. We'll give it a minute to load here. The other thing we can check are dew points. which we will here in a second. All right, so here's what we're dealing with right now. These are the current readings across the southeastern United States. And you'll notice a couple things. We've got much warmer temperatures down to the south, where we've got some 70s, even close to 80 degrees in portions of southern Alabama. We're at 81 in northeastern areas of Louisiana. Obviously much warmer here, right? Notice off to the north, though, this is just incredible. We have temperatures in the 50s. This is almost winter-like. Atlanta, you were in the 40s earlier. This is a wedge setup, so you get a high pressure off to the north, way up in like New England, like up in Maine, and that cold air circulates around and down the Appalachian Mountains and comes right in northeastern Georgia. And that's what we've had today. We started in the 40s, and so we've got cool air there, but that warm front is still way down to the south. It's still down here, and it's riding where these severe storms are, something like that. And so areas south of that line, that's where your severe weather threat is the rest of the evening. That's why I'm not too impressed with these storms near Montgomery. This is heavy rain. There's lots of lightning. May have some hail with these. But the severe threat, the tornado threat, I think lies further to the south along this kind of wobbly warm front that we have where the readings are much warmer south of there. That's the atmosphere you need to be conducive for tornadoes. The dew points, this measures how much moisture is in the air. Basically, if you're up in the upper 60s near 70 degrees or higher, it's very humid. If you're in the 50s, it's a little bit drier air. And this tells the story that we've been saying in terms of where that warm front is. You can see it lying somewhere like that across the southeast with your 70-degree, more humid dew points down to the south. And then you've got the 50-degree dew points, which really aren't conducive to severe weather at all. You get up in the 60s, that's when you have to watch it. It just depends on the weather setup. But again, most of our severe threat is going to be further down to the south. So here's our tornado warned storm in areas of Mississippi. These storms have packed a punch. There were tornado warned off to the west. But notice the trend. Those are all down towards the south, down in this area. So Florida Panhandle, I think it's going to be a dangerous night for you. Southern Alabama as well. Southeastern Mississippi, obviously ongoing right now. We even have to watch back in Louisiana. That front's not through yet for New Orleans. It's going to hang out to the north here for a little bit longer. We may get some storms for you in a couple hours. But really, this is where our threat is down to the south the rest of the evening. I really think that's going to be the area to watch. A couple other things we can check on. We can check on our wind. You can see the wind out of the south. Here, as you get down towards south, these little wind bars, the line always points to where the wind is blowing. So you can see we've got that southerly wind, and then off to the north, that wind is coming in from the north. I mean, that's what makes a front. You have wind kind of clashing with each other and piling that air up and causing that uplift, and that's what we have. But that's certainly been very obvious in terms of who's cooler and who's not. So again, that severe weather threat the rest of the evening, despite what I'm going to pull up here is our convective outlook for the day. We're going to take this off here. Don't want to get too many layers on our map going. So we'll take that off. There we go. We're even going to take the radar off. So there's our severe threat from the Storm Prediction Center for today, right? This is our moderate risk for severe storms, which is very high on this scale. And then you can see the orange area. I would almost say that threat is more so in here. Something like that the rest of the evening. That is going to be where our highest threat is. And the reason why the threat is lower as you get closer to the Gulf Coast, because it's further away from that area of energy near the area of low pressure. So we don't have as much uplift here. There's not as much in terms of dynamics. But still, I think anywhere in that white circled area that I just drew, I think that's where our severe threat is here, the highest, at least the rest of the evening. I think our secondary area would be somewhere in here. We'll stretch it over to Savannah, something like that. And I think if you're outside of those zones, I think your severe threat is actually very low the rest of the evening. And that includes some of these areas that are in that moderate risk, north of Montgomery up towards Columbus, Georgia, back towards Jackson. I think your threat is much lower than being indicated by our kind of outdated now Storm Prediction Center forecast. I think they did a great job. They nailed the area. But I just think given the atmospheric profile right now that we kind of need to readjust that here this evening. So that's your threat. Let's get the radar back on. We'll turn that off so we can take a look at where these storms are right now. that storm in areas of Mississippi continues to show signs that it's just kind of recycling a little bit. And that's a very dangerous storm. Again, that's on the southern flank of everything here. Oops, didn't want to get that telestrator on. There we go. No, that's not it. Okay, so here's our storm again. Let's get in here. Let's pull up our high-res radar again and go back into this storm. That we can get a better idea of what we have going on within this storm here. So you can see that they've changed that severe thunderstorm warning to a tornado warning. Remember we were saying that we need to treat this like a tornado warning because this thing just may be recycling. It looks like that's exactly what it's doing. So this is a very dangerous storm. Just north of Beaumont, you can see this red box there you see on the outside. That's a severe thunderstorm warning. That's the original one that they issued. This is still a severe thunderstorm outside of the tornadic part of the storm. But this part right here is where the biggest threat is obviously for that tornado, which is likely on the ground. It's produced a lot of damage off to the west. This was a tornado and a strong one by all the looks of it and all the damage reports coming in back towards the west as it went through Purvis, areas even west of that. But this storm continues off to the east. I think this is our storm to watch throughout the rest of the evening as well, eventually crossing over into Alabama here, probably in another half hour to 45 minutes or so. But Richton, Beaumont right now, we need to be in a safe place. This is all east of 59 in areas of southeastern Alabama. There are reports that power poles were snapped along Mississippi Highway 35 from this storm. It takes quite a bit to snap a power pole, likely from the tornado that was on the ground within this as it went through areas south of Columbia and north of the Angie area. The problem here now, these are the areas that already saw this storm and perhaps the tornado. We're seeing another severe thunderstorm issued off to the west again, and we've got probably 2 to 4 inch rainfalls per hour falling within this. And it's been raining for about an hour and a half in some of these spots. So flooding likely becoming an issue. You can see that flash flood warning that has been issued over this area. But this is some serious rain that's falling within these, in addition to that tornado threat that we have there as we are heading now into southeastern Mississippi here this evening. So that's what we're dealing with in terms of the severe weather in southeastern Mississippi. We also have that severe threat in areas of Alabama. I think the threat will kind of shift over here as we go throughout the evening because this area is also untapped. This is a very Mississippi-like atmosphere, only it's in Alabama because they haven't had much at all in terms of precip today in southern Alabama. So this is that other area where I think our threat goes throughout the evening hours. We're seeing that now. There's a severe thunderstorm approaching Troy. If you've been with us since the beginning of this broadcast, we were saying we need to keep an eye on that storm heading towards Troy. And this is heading actually a little bit further southeast than east as this is kind of curving along that warm front. Remember, we talked about that warm fronts in here as well. So this severe thunderstorm heading towards Troy has some hail with it. In addition to damaging winds, we've got heavy rain and lots of lightning as well. So that is in Troy, Alabama, eventually heading into areas of Barber County here, which is near Eufaula. That storm should head down to your south. You had a tornado not too long ago, 3 weeks or so ago, somewhere around there. This looks to head south of you. I think your severe threat in Eufaula is for damaging winds with any of these storms. But you can see big storms up towards Auburn. These are just putting down copious amounts of rainfall, and we have already had a ton of rain today from these thunderstorms. So it has just been just a soaker of a day across areas of the Chattahoochee Valley here, including areas near Auburn. But down to the south, it's been a drier picture today, but that's not necessarily a good thing because these storms are heading into air mass that is just really untapped and ready to go. So I would imagine as we go throughout the next couple hours through the 10 o'clock hour and eventually the 11 o'clock hour here Eastern time, we're going to be dealing with the severe weather rolling in areas of southern Alabama and even the Florida Panhandle, Panama City over towards Tallahassee, then eventually into Georgia here. So we've got that severe storm near Troy. Here's our tornado-warned storm, which has been a very dangerous storm. It's produced a tornado well to the west. If you remember those storms in Mississippi last week on Easter Sunday, a week ago today, we had one of the tornadoes, the EF4s, I believe tracked 82 to 83 miles on the ground. It's slightly different setup tonight than that, but it still supports long track tornadoes. And I would imagine that's what we have going on right now, is a storm that continues to recycle itself. So it reorganizes, much like if you ran your hand through a stream and you get those little swirly eddies on the side of your hand, how sometimes, or even a better reference would probably be like the bathtub drain when you're letting the water out. Sometimes you'll get that little tornado in there, and then sometimes it'll kind of recycle itself. Everything kind of needs to restructure before it gets stronger again. I would imagine that's what we have going on in this storm right here, where it kind of let down a little bit after it crossed I-59, and now it has restructured itself. So let's go in. Let's take another look. It's been, I think, 2 radar scans since we've gotten in here and looked at this storm. So we'll let this load. There's a lot of information kind of loading in here, but we're going to pull up the radar for this storm. And I want to look at the winds again. We'll take a look at the velocity scans on this to see what kind of scan we're getting out of that. Also want to make sure I have the closest radar. This is getting, okay, we still do. We might have to pull up the Mobile radar. I think that would probably be a better option, which we'll do that. We'll let that load. Sometimes these storms, when they get on the edge of a radar site, so the radar beam shooting up into the sky, right? It's shooting out, but eventually it goes up into the sky because you get away from the radar with the Earth's curvature. So we tend to not get very good reads of storms or a real clear picture as you get further away from the radar. And this one's pretty far from the Jackson radar now, so Mobile is the one that we'll pull up. And sometimes you get if you get farther away from the radar, you get a view up in the cloud a lot higher, so you can pick up a lot of hail. Sometimes if you pull up the velocity in that, you can see much stronger winds because, well, jet stream winds aren't too far above us, and sometimes you'll get a read of that. So we want to make sure we have a good read in terms of the radar. So it's not loading very well here. We'll give it some time, though. One of the keys to radar sometimes is to be a little bit more patient with it. But we'll see. We can go back, meanwhile, to the national radar and take a look because that's working just fine. But you can see here on the national radar, you don't get quite the high res, but we know this is a dangerous storm heading off towards the east. So here you go. I-59 is just a washout right now from Laurel down towards Hattiesburg. Even the Purvis area, you just got hit with a nasty, nasty storm, and now you're just seeing copious amounts of rainfall falling for you back towards Columbia. They've got a flash flood warning in place for that as well. As that storm continues to head into an air mass that is just really untapped so far. So this storm will likely continue to go further off to the east with its current strength, eventually into Alabama. Mobile, Alabama, most of it's going to head north of you for right now. We'll have to watch on the back side of this. We may see some development back in areas of southern Mississippi where we don't have anything right now. That's something we'll watch here over the next hour, but I would imagine this area, we may see some activity fill in here, but eventually you'll get back into this Louisiana stuff. And your severe threat, just as high, I think. I think our severe threat continues in the areas of southern Alabama, or areas of the panhandle of Florida, all kind of fair game here as we go throughout the evening as these storms push off to the east. So dangerous storm right now, southeastern areas of Alabama. This is near... it went through the Hattiesburg area just south of you near Purvis, and this is heading off towards the east. Around 65 miles per hour is what we tracked it at here a couple scans ago. So very dangerous storm here, likely still producing a tornado. You can see the town of Beaumont there, Richton. This will pass right in between you there, but both places need to be in a safe place because this is a very dangerous storm. And outside of the tornado that we have with this, you have a severe thunderstorm. So we have damaging winds outside of that, lots of lightning and some hail being reported within this too. We have had quite a few hail reports in addition to damaging wind reports throughout the evening. So the motion looks like this. Let's put it into motion and see kind of what the movement is. These storms have been hauling this evening, 60 to 70 miles per hour as they've just been screaming with that jet stream kind of punching in with that area low pressure. So they've been moving very, very quickly. And these tornado watches go for the next several hours. We'll probably see it get cut back a little bit, especially areas of near Montgomery, areas off to the north towards Birmingham. It doesn't go a whole lot further north than that, but I would imagine this threat is really going to be confined to portions down to towards the south in the Florida Panhandle, southern Alabama, southwestern areas of Georgia as well. So still a very dangerous storm here, areas of southeastern Mississippi. This includes Perry County and the town of Richton, as we mentioned, as this storm continues off towards the east, around 60 miles per hour. So this is our storm that we'll continue to watch throughout the rest of the evening. I think southern Alabama, that's another area we'll have to watch as we go on the go forward here. So